My name is Amelia Vance. I am 29 years old, and I live in a quiet suburb just 20 minutes away from my parents' house. The smell of roasted turkey hit me before I even reached the porch steps. It was the smell of home. I held my famous pecan pie in my hands, the tin warm against my palms. I was ready for the noise, the hugs, and the usual holiday chaos. I walked up and rang the doorbell, expecting it to swing wide open. I expected my mother to pull me inside and complain that I was late. But the door didn't open. It only cracked a few inches. My parents stood there in the gap. They blocked the view of the hallway like security guards. There were no smiles, there was no happy Thanksgiving. My father looked me right in the eye, his voice was cold and steady. "You're not invited, Amelia, go home." I froze. I couldn't process the words. Then I heard it. Laughter spilling out from the dining room, glasses clinking. A party was happening in full swing, and then I heard a laugh I knew better than my own. Noah, my best friend since kindergarten, he was in there. They were all in there, celebrating together. And they had left me standing out in the cold. But before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe, drop a comment, where are you watching from? My name is Amelia Vance. I am 29 years old. The rejection at the front door didn't happen in a vacuum. It was the final crash, but the cracks had been forming for weeks. I just didn't want to see them. I chose to be blind. It started in early November. The leaves were changing, and usually this was the time my mother and I started planning the menu. Thanksgiving was our Super Bowl. We would spend hours on the phone debating stuffing recipes or deciding whether to do a ham or a turkey. But this year, the phone didn't ring. When I called her, she was short with me. "I'm busy, Amelia," she said. "I can't talk right now, your father needs me." "Okay," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "I just wanted to ask about the guest list. Should I make 3 pies or 4? "We'll talk later," she snapped, and then the line went dead. I stared at my phone. My mother was never too busy to talk about food. It was the one thing we bonded over. I told myself she was stressed. Dad had been complaining about his back, and my sister, Sarah, was always causing some kind of drama with her on-again, off-again boyfriend. I told myself I was being sensitive. But then came the physical distance. I went over to their house a week later to drop off some winter coats I had dry cleaned for my dad. I had a key. I always had a key. I unlocked the front door and walked in, shouting, "Delivery service." The house went silent. I walked into the living room. My parents and Sarah were sitting there. They were talking in hushed, excited whispers. Sarah was laughing, holding her phone up for them to see. But the second I stepped onto the carpet, they stopped. It wasn't a natural pause. It was a freeze. Sarah immediately flipped her phone face down on the coffee table. The slap of the plastic against the wood echoed in the room. My mother smoothed her skirt, looking everywhere but at me. My father cleared his throat loudly. "Amelia," my dad said, "we didn't know you were coming." "I texted you," I said, holding up the dry cleaning. "I brought your coats." "Right, just put them in the hall," he said. He didn't say thank you. He didn't ask me to sit down. I stood there for a moment, feeling like a stranger in the house I grew up in. "Is everything okay?" I asked. "You guys seemed like you were having fun." "Just family stuff," Sarah said quickly. She didn't look at me. "Nothing you'd be interested in." "I'm family," I said, trying to make it a joke. Nobody laughed. "We're just tired, Amelia," my mom said, finally standing up. She walked over and took the coats from my hands, effectively ushering me back toward the door. "It's been a long week. You should go get some rest." I was kicked out but polite. I walked back to my car feeling a knot form in my stomach. Something was wrong. Then there was Noah. Noah was my anchor. We had been best friends since we were 5 years old. He knew everything about me. We had a tradition of getting tacos every Tuesday night. We never missed it. Not when he was dating someone, not when I was working overtime. Tuesday was ours. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, I texted him. "Tacos on me tonight. I need to vent about my weird parents." The message sat there, delivered. Usually he replied in seconds with a taco emoji. An hour passed. Then I checked the app. Read at 4:15 p.m. He had seen it, he just hadn't answered. I called him that night. It went straight to voicemail. "Hey, this is Noah, leave a message." "Hey," I said to the recording. "Just checking in, hope you're okay." "Call me?" He didn't call. For the next 10 days, the silence grew heavier. It wasn't empty silence. It was heavy, pregnant silence. When I walked into the local grocery store and saw my aunt, she turned her cart down the other aisle to avoid me. When I commented on my cousin's Facebook post, the post was deleted an hour later. I felt like a ghost. I was present, but nobody was acknowledging me. I tried to rationalize it. They are planning a surprise for me, I thought. Maybe a birthday surprise, even though my birthday was months away. Or maybe they were all just fighting with each other and didn't want to drag me into it. I was lying to myself. Deep down, I knew the texture of this silence. It felt like a secret. It felt like a conspiracy. The last straw before the holiday was a brief interaction with my sister, Sarah. I ran into her at the gas station. She couldn't escape. "Hey," I said, forcing a smile. "I haven't heard from anyone. Is the plan still 2 p.m. for dinner on Thursday?" Sarah looked panicked. She wouldn't meet my eyes. She focused intensely on the gas pump nozzle. Yeah, I think so. Mom is handling it. You know how she gets." "Is Noah coming?" I asked. Sarah flinched. It was a tiny movement, a twitch of her shoulder, but I saw it. "I don't know, Amelia, I have to go." She ripped the nozzle out before the tank was full, jumped in her car, and sped off. I stood there in the smell of gasoline and cold air, watching her taillights disappear. The knot in my stomach tightened. They were hiding something, but I never imagined they were hiding the fact that I no longer belonged to them. To understand why I didn't scream or fight back immediately, you have to understand who I was to them. I wasn't just a daughter or a sister. I was the fixer. I was the doormat. Growing up, I was the responsible one. That sounds like a compliment, but in my family, it was a job description. My parents were chaotic. They were impulsive with money, emotional, and bad at planning. My sister Sarah was the wild child, the one who needed attention, who got in trouble, who needed saving. And me, I was the safety net. When I was 12, I learned how to balance my mother's checkbook because she couldn't figure out why she was overdrawn. When I was 16, I drove Sarah to pick up her homework from school every day because she forgot it, and my parents were too tired to deal with it. When I was 22 and fresh out of college, I used my first bonus check to pay for a new boiler for my parents' house, because theirs broke in the dead of winter. They didn't say thank you. They just said, "Oh, thank God, it was freezing in here." I thought this was love. I thought that being useful was the rent I had to pay to be in the family. I believed that if I worked hard enough, if I solved enough problems, if I gave enough of myself, they would love me as much as they loved Sarah. Sarah, who never lifted a finger. Sarah, who stole money from Mom's purse but got forgiven because she's going through a phase. I was the one they called at 2 a.m. "Amelia, the alarm is going off. How do I reset it?" "Amelia, can you proofread this email for me?" "Amelia, we're short on the mortgage this month. Can you loan us $500? I always said yes. My identity was wrapped up in being the reliable one, the strong one, and Noah knew this. Noah was the only one who ever told me I did too much. "They use you, Mel," he had told me once, years ago, sitting on the hood of his car. "You know that, right? They treat you like an employee, not a daughter." "That's just how they are," I had defended them. "They need me. They need a bank account and a maid," Noah had said darkly. That was why Noah's silence hurt the most. He was the witness. He had watched me give everything to these people for years. He had held my hand when I cried because my dad forgot my college graduation. He had been angry for me. So, as Thanksgiving approached, I fell back into my role. Even with the weird silence, even with the distance, I went into fixer mode. I assumed they were stressed about money. That was usually the trigger for their weird behavior. So I went shopping. I bought the expensive wine my dad liked. I bought the high-end ingredients for the side dishes. I spent $300 at the grocery store, thinking, if I bring the best food, if I make everything perfect, the tension will go away. We will be a happy family again. I baked 4 pies: pecan, pumpkin, apple, and a chocolate silk pie just for Sarah. I spent the Wednesday before Thanksgiving alone in my kitchen, rolling out dough. My back ached. My hands were covered in flour. I imagined walking into their house the next day. I imagined them seeing the pies. I imagined my mom saying, "Oh, Amelia, you saved the day." I imagined my dad pouring me a glass of wine and saying, "Good to see you, kid." I imagined Noah giving me a hug and whispering, "Sorry I was busy, work was crazy." I was crafting a fantasy to cover up the reality. I wanted to be the hero of the holiday. I didn't realize that in their version of the story, I had already been written out of the script. I wasn't the hero. I wasn't even a guest. I was just the resource they had finished draining. The truth didn't hit me all at once. It came in small, sharp pieces, like shards of glass working their way out of a wound. It happened 2 days before Thanksgiving. I had gone to my parents' house one last time, unannounced, to drop off a heavy bag of potatoes so I wouldn't have to carry them on Thursday. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw a car I didn't recognize, a sleek black sedan. It was parked next to my dad's truck. I walked to the front door, but it was locked. I used my key. The house was empty. The car outside must have belonged to a friend of Sarah's, or maybe a neighbor. But as I walked into the kitchen to put the potatoes on the counter, I saw it. My mother's iPad was sitting on the kitchen island. The cover was folded back. The screen was lit up. I wasn't a snoop. I respected privacy. But the screen was bright, and a notification banner dropped down right as I looked at it. It was a text message from my Aunt Linda. MSG. Don't worry, he has no idea. This is going to be perfect. I froze. Did she mean my dad? Was this a surprise party for Dad? Curiosity got the better of me. My heart started to hammer against my ribs. I touched the screen. It didn't have a passcode. My mom could never remember them, so I had set it to swipe to unlock for her years ago. I opened the messaging app. The thread wasn't just with Aunt Linda. It was a group chat. The name of the group chat was Thanksgiving 2 No Drama. I scrolled up. My breath hitched in my throat. I saw a picture. It was a photo of the guest list handwritten on my mother's stationery. I zoomed in. Mom, Dad, Sarah, Aunt Linda, Uncle Bob, the Millers. Noah. My name wasn't there. I felt a cold sweat break out on the back of my neck. I kept scrolling, my finger trembling against the glass. Mom, I'm just worried she's going to show up anyway. Amelia is so pushy. Sarah, she won't. I was weird with her at the gas station. She thinks we're just busy. Uncle Bob, did Noah talk to her about the plan? We need to make sure she doesn't crash it. Noah, I haven't answered her calls in 2 weeks. She has no clue. Don't worry, I'm handling it. I stared at Noah's name. I stared at his words. I'm handling it. He wasn't just ignoring me. He was part of the coordination. He was the gatekeeper. Then I saw the message that broke me. It was from my father. Dad, let's just enjoy one holiday without her. She's too much lately, always acting like a martyr. I just want a peaceful dinner without her keeping score. A martyr, keeping score, is that what they called it? Is that what they called 20 years of cleaning up their messes? Is that what they called paying for their heat? Is that what they called driving them to doctor's appointments? I dropped the iPad back onto the counter. The clatter sounded like a gunshot in the quiet kitchen. I felt sick, physically sick. I wanted to vomit. They weren't just excluding me. They were laughing about it. They were strategizing against me like I was an enemy combatant. Like I was a disease they needed to quarantine. And Noah, my Noah, the person who knew all my secrets, he was in on it. He was assuring them that he was handling me. I backed out of the kitchen. I didn't leave the potatoes. I took the bag with me. It was a petty, small thing, but I couldn't leave them anything. I drove home in a daze. I didn't cry. I was in shock. I sat on my couch and stared at the wall for 3 hours. I replayed every interaction, every favor, every moment of my life with them. They don't love me, I realized. The thought was simple and devastating. They tolerate me when I am useful. And right now, they just want to have fun without the reminder of who pays the bills. But the betrayal wasn't done. The emotional knife was deep, but the next discovery would twist it. The next morning, the day before Thanksgiving, I woke up with a headache that felt like a vice. I had barely slept. I was sitting at my kitchen table, drinking black coffee, trying to decide what to do. Should I confront them? Should I call Mom and scream? Should I text Noah and ask him how he could sleep at night? I checked my mail. I hadn't checked it in a few days because I had been so busy baking for people who hated me. There was a letter from a bank I didn't bank with, First City Credit. It looked like junk mail. Usually I threw these away, pre-approved or low interest rates. But this one looked different. It said urgent. Regarding your overdue balance. I frowned. I didn't have an account with First City Credit. I had zero debt. I paid my credit cards off in full every single month. I was meticulous. I tore the envelope open. Dear Miss Amelia Vance, this is a final notice regarding the outstanding balance of $12,450 on your Platinum Visa ending in 4490. Your minimum payment is 90 days past due. My hands started to shake. $12,000. I grabbed my laptop. I logged into a credit monitoring site, one of those free ones I had signed up for years ago and never checked. I waited for the page to load, my heart pounding in my ears. The dashboard appeared. My credit score, which used to be a perfect 800, was tanking. It was down to 620. I clicked on Open Accounts. There it was. First City Credit Visa, opened 8 months ago. Balance, $12,450. Lakeside Auto Loans opened 6 months ago. Balance, $28,000. Quick Cash Personal Loan opened 3 months ago. Balance, $5,000. I couldn't breathe. Someone had stolen my identity. I clicked on the details for the credit card. I looked at the billing address. It wasn't my address. It was 14 Maple Drive, my parents' house. I looked at the auto loan. It was for a new Ford Explorer. My dad had bought a new Ford Explorer 6 months ago. He told me he had come into a little money from an old investment. He had bragged about it. He had taken me for a ride in it. He bought it in my name. He used my social security number. He used my credit history, the history I had built by being responsible, to get loans he couldn't qualify for. And Mom, the personal loan. I remembered 3 months ago she went on a girls' trip with her friends. She said she saved up for it, $5,000 in my name. They weren't just tired of me. They weren't just annoyed by my martyr act. They were stealing from me. They were ruining my financial future while smiling to my face. And the worst part, they assumed I wouldn't check. They assumed Amelia, the good daughter, the one who trusts them, the one who never asks questions, would just not notice. Or maybe they thought that if I did notice, I would just pay it. Because that's what I did. I fixed things. If I found a $12,000 debt, they probably bet that I would just sigh, work extra shifts, and pay it off to protect them. To protect the family. I sat there, the papers scattered on the table. The grief I felt from the text messages evaporated. The sadness was gone. The confusion was gone. In its place was something cold and hard. It felt like steel. I wasn't a daughter anymore. I was a victim of fraud. I picked up the phone. I didn't call my parents. I didn't call Noah. I called the bank. "Hello," I said, my voice steady, sounding calmer than I had ever felt in my life. "I need to speak to the fraud department." "Yes, I want to report identity theft." "No, I don't know who did it." "Actually, wait." I paused. I looked at the invite list in my mind. I looked at the text from my dad calling me a martyr. "Actually," I said, "I know exactly who did it." I hung up. I didn't file the report yet. I needed everything to be perfect. I spent the rest of the day gathering evidence. I printed the credit reports. I found the old emails where I had sent my parents my tax info to help them with a filing years ago. That's how they got my social security number. I built a file. I wasn't just going to get my money back. I was going to destroy their little party. They wanted a holiday without me. They wanted to enjoy their turkey and their stolen car and their stolen vacation without having to look at the victim. I looked at the clock. It was Wednesday night. Tomorrow was Thanksgiving. I would give them exactly what they asked for. I wouldn't go inside. I wouldn't eat their food. But I would make sure that by the time dessert was served, they would wish they had never heard the name Amelia Vansai had the evidence against my parents. The credit card statements, the auto loan papers, the dates, the signatures that weren't mine. I had them cold. But I wasn't finished. If I was going to burn the bridge, I had to burn the whole thing. I couldn't leave Noah standing on the other side. Noah was supposed to be my safe place. He was the one person I thought had no agenda. But reading those text messages in the group chat, "I'm handling it," he had said, made me realize something painfully obvious. Noah wasn't just a bystander. You don't get that close to a family of grifters without learning a few tricks or benefiting from the chaos. I sat at my desk. The sun was going down on Wednesday night. My parents' financial betrayal was sloppy, desperate. But Noah was smart. He was careful. I thought about his business. Noah ran a small import-export logistics company. It sounded fancy, but mostly he moved boutique furniture and high-end decor for rich clients. 2 years ago, he had come to me begging for help. He needed a surety bond, a type of insurance guarantee, to land a massive contract with a city development project. His credit wasn't good enough. Mine was. "It's just a signature, Mel," he had said, looking at me with those puppy dog eyes. "If I don't get this, I go under. I swear you'll never have to pay a dime. It just shows them I have backing." I signed it. Of course I signed it. I was the fixer. Because I was the guarantor on his bond, I had legal access to his business filings. I had never looked at them. I trusted him. But now, trust was a luxury I couldn't afford. I logged into the state's business portal. I entered my credentials as the guarantor. The dashboard loaded. At first, everything looked normal. Revenue was up. Expenses were normal. But then I looked at the vendor list. There was a recurring payment to a company called Lumina Logistics. Every month, Noah paid them $4,500 for consulting fees. I frowned. I knew Noah's business inside and out. He didn't have consultants, he barely had employees. I searched Lumina Logistics in the state registry. The owner of Lumina Logistics was listed as Sarah Vance, my sister. My breath caught in my throat. I clicked on the filing history. The address for Lumina Logistics was my parents' house. I pulled up the bank transfer records. Noah wasn't paying a consultant. He was funneling money to my sister. Why? I dug deeper. I looked at the invoices he had uploaded to justify the payments. They were for project management. Sarah couldn't manage a trip to the grocery store, let alone a logistics project. Then I saw the dates. The payments started exactly 2 weeks after I signed the surety bond. And then, I saw the other side of the transaction. Noah had another contract, one I didn't know about. It was with a construction firm that had a reputation for cutting corners. The contract was for waste disposal. But Noah didn't have a waste disposal license. He wasn't certified for that. If he was moving construction waste, he was doing it illegally, probably dumping it somewhere cheap to save money. If he got caught, the fines would be massive. And because I was the guarantor on his bond, I would be liable for the fines. He was using my credit to back a business that was breaking the law, and he was paying my sister hush money or a cut of the profits to keep it in the family. That's why they were all so close. That's why Sarah and Noah were suddenly best friends. That's why my parents loved him. He was their cash cow, and I was the insurance policy. They weren't just using me for labor anymore. They were using my name to underwrite a criminal enterprise. I sat back in my chair. The room was dark now. The only light came from the laptop screen. My best friend was risking my freedom and my financial ruin so he could make a quick buck and buy my sister's silence. I felt a tear slide down my cheek. It was the last tear I would shed for a long time. I wiped it away angrily. I printed everything. The invoices to Sarah, the illegal waste manifests, the bond agreement with my signature. I had a folder for my parents. Now I had a folder for Noah. I picked up my phone. I had one contact in my list, a woman named Karen who worked for the state licensing board. We had met at a conference once. She was tough. She hated fraud. I didn't call her yet. I saved the draft of the email I was going to send her. It had all the attachments. Subject: violation of bond agreement and unlicensed activity priority. All I had to do was press send. But not yet. I wanted to see their faces one last time. I wanted to give them one chance to prove me wrong. I wanted to see if the door would open. If they welcomed me in, if they apologized, if they told me the truth. Maybe I would hesitate. Maybe I would just demand my name be removed and walk away quietly. But if they treated me like they did in the group chat, then I would burn it all down. Thanksgiving Day was cold. The sky was a flat steel gray. The trees were bare. It looked like the world had been stripped clean. I dressed carefully. I didn't wear my usual helper clothes, jeans, and a sweatshirt ready to clean dishes. I wore my best wool coat. I wore boots with a heel. I put on makeup. I wanted to look like a woman who respected herself even if nobody else did. I packed the pies. It felt like a grim joke. I put the pecan, the pumpkin, and the chocolate silk into the backseat of my car. I also put the 2 manila folders on the passenger seat. The drive to my parents' house took 20 minutes. I knew every pothole, every turn. I had driven this route 1,000 times to fix their problems. Today, the road felt different. It felt like a runway to a crash. I pulled into the driveway. The house looked perfect. There was a wreath on the door. Warm yellow light glowed from the windows. I could see silhouettes moving inside. I saw Noah's car. I saw my parents' new Ford Explorer, the one I was unknowingly paying for. I took a deep breath. I grabbed the pies. I left the folders in the car. I walked up the path. The concrete was cracked. I remembered telling my dad I would pay to fix it next spring. I stepped over the crack. I reached the door. I could hear music. Jazz. My dad loved jazz. I could hear Sarah laughing. It was a high, shrieky laugh. I rang the doorbell. The noise inside didn't stop, but the movement changed. The shadows near the window froze. Someone peered through the peephole. I waited. The lock clicked. The door opened, but only a few inches. The chain was still on. My mother's face appeared in the crack. She didn't look happy. She looked annoyed. She looked like a salesperson had just interrupted her dinner. "Amelia," she said. "Hi, Mom," I said. I held up the pies. "I brought dessert and the potatoes." She didn't open the door further. She glanced back over her shoulder. My father stepped up behind her. He looked angry. His face was flushed, like he had already had a few drinks. "What are you doing here?" he asked. "It's Thanksgiving," I said. My voice was calm, but my heart was hammering against my ribs. "I'm your daughter. We told you we were doing something small," my mother said. "Just us." "I see Noah's car," I said. "I see Uncle Bob's truck. It doesn't look small." My father sighed. It was a loud, dramatic sigh. "Look, Amelia. We just wanted a peaceful day. You've been intense lately. We didn't want the drama." "Drama?" I asked. "I fixed your heater last week. I did your taxes. I fill your fridge." "See," my father snapped. "That's exactly it. You keep score. You hold things over our heads. It's exhausting." He looked me right in the eye. "You're not invited, Amelia. Go home. We'll call you next week when you've calmed down." I looked at him. I looked at my mother, who was looking at the floor. Then through the crack I saw Noah. He walked into the hallway, holding a glass of wine. He saw me. He didn't come to the door. He didn't defend me. He made eye contact with me, then turned his back and walked away. That was it. The final piece of evidence. "Okay," I said. My father blinked. He expected a fight. He expected me to beg. "Okay, okay," I repeated. "Happy Thanksgiving." I set the pies down on the doormat, right on the dirty, bristly mat. "You can have these," I said. "I won't be needing them." I turned around and walked away. I didn't run. I didn't stomp. I walked at a normal pace back to my car. I could feel their eyes on my back. They were probably watching from the window, laughing nervously, thinking that was easier than I thought. She's finally gone. I got into my car. It was cold inside. I looked at the house. It looked so warm and inviting. It was a lie. A beautiful, expensive lie that I had been subsidizing for years. I picked up the manila folders from the passenger seat. I didn't need to look at the papers inside. I knew what to do. I picked up my phone. I didn't drive away yet. I wanted to be here for this. I dialed the number for the fraud department at the bank, the direct line the agent gave me yesterday. "This is Amelia Vance," I said. "I'm confirming the fraudulent charges." "Yes. I want to file the official police report now. The perpetrators are at 14 Maple Drive. Yes, I am willing to press charges. Full prosecution." I hung up. Then I opened my email app. I opened the draft to Karen at the state licensing board. Send. I watched the progress bar. Sent. Then I sent one last text message. To Noah subject, the surety bond. Message, I just revoked the bond. And I sent the invoices for Sarah and the waste manifests to the state board. Good luck with the audit. I put the phone down on the dashboard. I waited. It didn't take long. I sat in my car at the end of the driveway, the engine idling quietly. The heater was starting to kick in, blowing warm air on my frozen hands. 5 minutes passed. The house was still glowing. Then, the first domino fell. My phone lit up, Mom calling. I watched it ring. I didn't answer, then again, Dad calling. I let it go to voicemail. I rolled down my window just a crack. I wanted to hear. The front door of the house flew open. My mother stepped out onto the porch. She was holding her phone to her ear, her other hand clutching her chest. "Amelia," she screamed. It wasn't a welcoming scream. It was a shriek of panic. "Pick up the phone, the cards aren't working. The accounts are frozen." She had tried to order something, or maybe she got the fraud alert notification instantly. Then my father came out. He looked furious. He stormed down the porch steps in his socks. "Amelia," he bellowed. "What did you do? The police just called me. They said there's a warrant pending. What the hell is this?" I watched them. They looked small. They looked chaotic. Then came the third call. "Noah," I answered this one. "Hello," I said. My voice was calm. Conversational. "Mel, what did you do?" Noah's voice was trembling. He was breathless. "I just got an email from the licensing board. They're suspending my operations immediately. They're launching an investigation." "Mel, they're talking about prison time for the waste dumping. Why would you do this?" "I'm handling it," I said. I used his own words. "What?" "You said you were handling me in the group chat," I said. "So I decided to handle you. I revoked the bond, Noah. You're operating illegally as of 5 minutes ago, and I gave them the records of the kickbacks to Sarah." "Mel, please," he was crying now. "This ruins me. This ruins everything." "You ruined me first," I said. "You stole my credit. You stole my trust. You stole my family." "We were just trying to have a nice dinner," he shouted. "And now you can," I said. "Enjoy the turkey. I hear prison food is bland, so savor this meal." I hung up. By now, my father was halfway down the driveway. He was red-faced, waving his arms. "You ungrateful brat," he screamed. "After everything we did for you, you're going to send your own father to jail over money." It's not money, Dad, I whispered to myself. It's my life. I put the car in reverse. My father lunged for the door handle of my car. I locked the doors. Click, he banged on the window. Open this door, fix this. Call them back and tell them it was a mistake. I looked at him through the glass. This was the man who taught me to ride a bike. This was the man I had worshipped. I didn't feel hate. I felt pity. He looked like a child who had been told no for the first time in his life. I didn't say anything. I just backed out of the driveway. I saw my mother on the porch, slumped against the railing, crying. I saw Sarah standing in the doorway, looking terrified, her phone in her hand, probably realizing her consulting payments were gone. I saw Noah standing in the yard, staring at the ground, defeated. I shifted into drive. I didn't look back in the rearview mirror. I drove down the street, past the neighbors' houses where other families were gathering, oblivious to the bomb I had just dropped. My phone kept ringing. Mom, Dad, Sarah, Noah, Mom, Dad. I pulled over about 2 miles away. I took the SIM card out of my phone. I snapped it in half. I tossed the pieces into a public trash can outside a convenience store. Then I drove to the highway. The next few weeks were a blur of efficiency. I didn't go back to my apartment except to pack. I stayed in a hotel in the next town over, paid for with cash. I hired a lawyer, a shark. I gave him everything. I want no contact, I told him. I want them prosecuted for the identity theft. I want my name cleared, and I want a restraining order if they come near me. They're your parents, the lawyer said, looking at the file. Are you sure you want to press charges? Usually, families settle this privately. They aren't my family, I said. They are people who stole $45,000 from me and tried to ruin my reputation. Treat them like strangers. The fallout was swift. Because I had provided so much evidence, the police didn't have to do much digging. My father was arrested for fraud and forgery. My mother was named as an accomplice. Noah's business was shut down within 48 hours. The EPA got involved because of the illegal dumping. The fines were astronomical. He lost his house. He lost his truck. Last I heard, he was facing 3 years in minimum security. They tried to reach me. Oh, they tried. My email inbox filled up with pleading messages. We're sorry, we were desperate. How can you do this to us? We're family. I didn't read past the subject lines. I forwarded them all to my lawyer to add to the harassment file. I sold my furniture. I broke my lease. I packed my life into the back of my car, my real car, the one I paid for. I transferred my job. My company had a branch in Denver. It was 1,000 miles away. Mountains, clean air, a place where nobody knew my last name. The day I left, I stopped by the post office to set up my mail forwarding. But I didn't forward it to my new address. I forwarded it to a P.O. box in a different state, which would then forward to my lawyer. I wanted to be a ghost. I drove out of town on a Tuesday. I drove past the grocery store where I used to buy their food. I drove past the school where I used to pick Sarah up. I drove past the park where Noah and I used to eat tacos. I felt a phantom pain, like an amputated limb. I missed the version of them I had created in my head. I missed the parents I wanted to have. I missed the Noah I thought existed. But I didn't miss the reality. The reality was heavy. It was expensive. It was painful. As the city limits sign faded in my rearview mirror, I felt something strange. My shoulders dropped. The tension in my jaw released. The headache that had been behind my eyes for 10 years vanished. I turned on the radio. I sang along. I was alone. I had no safety net. I had no people. But I also had no debt that wasn't mine. I had no secrets keeping me up at night. I had no one waiting for me to fail. I was vanishing from their lives, but for the first time I was appearing in my own. 5 years later. The mountains in Denver are beautiful in November. They are dusted with white, sharp against the blue sky. I have a small house now. It's not big, but it's mine. The deed has my name on it and only my name. I have a dog named Buster. He's a rescue. He doesn't ask for anything except food and belly rubs. He's the most loyal male I've ever known. It's Thanksgiving morning. The kitchen smells like rosemary and garlic. I'm not making a turkey. I never really liked turkey. I just made it because my dad liked it. I'm making lasagna. Homemade pasta, rich meat sauce, 3 kinds of cheese. It's my favorite food. There is no chaos. There is no screaming. There is no pile of coats in the hallway. I have friends coming over at 4 p.m. Not family who are obligated to be here. Friends. People I met at the dog park, people from work, a neighbor who teaches pottery. People who know me as Amelia the project manager, Amelia the hiker, Amelia who makes great lasagna. They don't know Amelia the victim. They don't know Amelia the fixer. I told them the basics. I'm not close with my family. They respected it. They didn't pry. I pour myself a glass of wine. I stand by the window and look out at the snow. I know what happened to them. My lawyer gives me an update once a year. My father got probation and community service, but his credit is ruined. They lost the house on Maple Drive. They live in a small apartment now. Sarah works at a diner. Noah moved away after he got out of jail. He works construction now, labor only, no management. They are still paying me back. Every month, a check for $150 arrives at my lawyer's office. It's court-ordered restitution. At this rate, they will be paying me until they are 90. I don't need the money. I donate it to a charity that helps victims of financial abuse. But the checks are a reminder that I won. I didn't win by screaming louder than them. I didn't win by playing their games. I won by refusing to play. I hear a car pull up. Buster barks happily. My friends are here. I walk to the door. I don't hesitate. I don't look through the peephole with fear. I swing the door wide open. Come in, I say. Happy Thanksgiving. The cold air rushes in, but it doesn't chill me. The house is warm. The laughter that fills the room is genuine. I look at the table set for 6. I look at the wine glasses catching the light. I think back to that woman standing on the porch with the pies, begging for scraps of love from people who wanted to starve her. She seems like a stranger to me now. A sad, tired stranger. I raise my glass to her in my mind. You did it, I tell her. You walked away. And that was the greatest twist of all. They thought I was nothing without them. But it turned out I was everything without them.